So do we? Yeah.
Right. Well, while my computer is booting, back in, I think, Festi Cycle, that's me trying to dig up the history on the whole can of worms, there was a spec proposed called Reliable RAID. And it outlined, you can find it on the wiki.ubuntu.com quite easily, and it outlined many, many problems which happen when you use software RAID on Ubuntu currently. And there are many use cases where it's far from being reliable and it doesn't give you the redundancy that you were supposed to be guaranteed to have. It includes things like not properly booting or booting and degrading your RAID for you if you use combinations of encryptFS and LUGS and LVM on top, such that as soon as you step to the left or to the right, it starts falling apart. I'm a recent hiree by Canonical, and I'm supposed to work on the file systems, and that's one of the things that I will be driving to try to fix as much as possible. And as many people who want to join on this effort, the better, because it's very complicated, it's very hard to test, and it's very hard to test automatically and reliably and do continuous integration. That's why it's still in a state as it is. There are many combinations. Right.
Perhaps you should read out the comments from the RC for the people who are listening.
Right, okay, yeah. The comments are, I believe the current status is that the init scripts time out waiting for the rootfs. And then before dropping the user to the init ramfs prompt, try to activate the RAID array degraded. That only works for the rootfs, not other degraded arrays. Instead, the degrading should be done plug and play via UDEF.
Question. Does UDEF give us that information?
I would really love to know whether it does, and my first question would be how would you do it if you have a RAID on top of LUGS encrypted? Because you first need to unlock the crypt before you actually know you have RAID to deal with. And if you're trying to do it at boot, you need to do it in the early user mode, not later when you actually have UDEF. Yes?
When you say actually have UDEF, we do have UDEF in the ramfs.
We do.
And so anything that's strictly event-driven and doesn't require interaction should work already in the ramfs. However, with mdadm support in the ramfs, I'm not sure how it's actually working.
And could something like that work for the complicated we do here when we're talking about the nested case for an encrypted array, a RAID that's in an encrypted LUGS partition?
RAID that's in an encrypted LUGS partition.
It may be insane to do this, but...
So if your RAID, if your root file system is on that RAID, then the init ramfs is supposed to handle that correctly. Because what happens is at init ramfs generation time, it identifies the physical devices making up the root file system that it has to wait for. And so your crypt setup says, I need to unlock these devices at boot in the init ramfs. And so it will... I doubt that it does it in a... I imagine it waits for them in a particular order, but when each given device appears, it will prompt for the passphrase and unlock.
But that potentially, I mean, if you consider the worst case scenario, I have two individually encrypted underlying partitions with different passwords such that you will need to interact with me as a fallible human.
Yep.
How do you know the second one's failed? Because it doesn't appear. Because I haven't yet answered the question because I'm being slack and slow in the real world. It sounds like a very difficult thing to work out whether you've lost the second half or if it's just taking a while to arrive.
Good question.
I was more pushing that towards the can we do it as a plug and play thing within UDEF rules because you have this human involved who is of slow performance.
Right. Obviously, yeah, you've got the timeouts with UDEF that are an issue. You know, there's another session about should we put upstart in the init ramfs, which removes the timeout problem. Hello.
Who are you doing?
Good to see you here. You're not here physically, though?
Well, I would suggest not.
We don't use upstart right now to deal with these situations.
Correct.
Why
Not
would
all
upstart be
situations.
the right thing to do? Why would upstart be the right thing to do?
Because we have some arbitrary timeouts currently in NMFS. We have a wait for root. There are arbitrary timeouts in the NMFS which are there because we're not event-based. So we have the same problem of sleeps in the NMFS that we got rid of on the post pivot root.
I would think that
Aren't we just waiting 2 minutes for root to appear? If it appears before then, everything's good. Otherwise, everything's bad.
No, that's not good. Because people have remote servers, they need to SSH interaction and lock it, and it can take forever.
I'm not disputing that that isn't guaranteed to work in all situations, but isn't that how it works now?
Thought that is. Thought we wait for root. Is that gone now?
We do wait for root, but it has a timeout.
Yeah, I thought it was a minute or 2 minutes.
I thought it was
You always
30
get busy.
seconds.
In the specific case of crypt setup, it waits indefinitely because there's a prompt.
Yeah.
If it's found the device and it's trying to unlock the device, it's waiting for the input at the prompt. If it hasn't found the device, it times out if the device is here. So I'm looking at the crypt root script, and it's the very non-idiomatic usage, but it's sleeping for 1/10 of a second at a time, and sleeps for a total of 180 seconds, waiting for the device to appear.
So they're saying up here that human intervention is required for Lux, that automatic boot degraded doesn't make sense in that context.
Right. In that context, I think that's the upshot. I think where you're waiting for the human interaction, there's no way to actually do that because you don't know if you're waiting for the human. However, if the crypt setup does wait for the device it's trying to decrypt to appear. If the device it's trying to decrypt does not appear, then it gives up and does not prompt for it. But if it knows the device is there and it's just waiting for the human, it's never going to skip that step.
So what does it do if you have two Lux devices?
If you have two,
Lux devices.
are they both used for the root file
So
system?
let's assume they're both used for the root file system as a root. How would we know that?
Right.
Because we're just wait for root's waiting for you, I mean, right?
Wait.
Which is in something that's inside something inside
Right,
something.
but it's a linear, so the crypt root script runs before anything waits for root. So it's linear. The init runs crypt root, which says, I have to prompt for the decrypt passwords for this file, this block device, and this block device.
Okay, so so it knows the actual names of both.
Yeah, because it's probed that at NMFS construction time.
And why would you ever have two layers of Lux for your root effects?
No, you might have different Luxes for two plexes of a RAID.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Was what I was asking about.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is,
But then by that
the
time,
root knows I have two things I need to decrypt, and I don't even know why I'm doing it, but I know there are these two, and I must do it.
Yes.
That's its mentality.
Yes.
And then wait for root goes,
And-
there's two things I must de-enrade them, and it may then go degrade
and
not
it will not mount one as a degraded RAID while the other one is not encrypted yet? Decrypted, sorry.
Well, the script that waits for the devices to become available
Blocks.
blocks.
And that's it.
And yeah, so it's not going to. I don't believe it triggers the degraded RAID at that point.
because that hasn't happened.
What actually triggers the degraded RAID?
Or what triggers RAID acquiring in the first place? Because presumably
We're doing
when
that
do we
yeah.
ask UDEV to make a RAID?
Right.
When we do block ID on the decrypted partition and notice it has a RAID header in it, presumably.
Sure.
And that presumably happens in UDEV asynchronously as soon as we type the first password correctly. At what point does that half of the world think the other half hasn't arrived?
It's a very good question, which I'm attempting now to figure out the answer to. I don't, however, think this is actually the problem people are running into in practice.
No, it seems
when we talk about the RAID reliability, people who are doing automatic RAID construction on boot are running into problems that have nothing to do with passphrases causing timeouts. So I do think that although it's interesting to answer this question, I'll try to do that for you.
Well, let's table it interesting for later.
Yeah.
We are probably getting high-end, so.
RAID discussion on the bar.
Let's raid the bar.
Redundant array of any rated developers. So, I didn't find case. I've sent out a bat signal form, but I haven't gotten a reply yet. Are there other people that have experienced issues with RAID reliability currently that they're able to talk about? Dimitri, did you have a chance to review the blueprint notes from the previous?
Yes, I've posted the links to the reliable RAID and boot degraded RAID, and I did look at some of those bugs, but didn't go too much into detail, and I just had a pass through to realize that there's loads of stuff.
So is the real problem that we don't really quite know what the problem is, and maybe what we should try and work out is how we can perhaps test for it? Is there an easy way we can test for these things, like just deliberately destroying second plexes of RAID by wiping off the
testing
to create a unit test kind of test?
Testing needs to be a huge part of this. We need to figure out how to get things tested.
But maybe we could use that to generate the bad situations.
Yes.
So
some of them, but some of them we don't understand, I think.
I agree that for the basic ones, we can certainly test those. Because losing a secondary disk is very difficult, very simple to emulate. If it's an LVM style partition, for example, because we can just wipe it. It won't be there.
Well, and there's a lot of this we can do with VMs nowadays. I think we can
script outside to actually delete this.
Yeah. Have disks disappear. It's difficult to emulate certain kinds of failures where your block device is becoming unreliable rather than.
But you could inject errors actually at the kernel level into specific devices. So you could say 1 in 3 reads goes wrong, weird things like that.
And there's interesting stuff you can do with LXC as well to emulate block devices using files, and then you can do corruption on the hard disk from your host while the LXC is still running and thinking that everything's fine, and it's not. So I would be playing around with that.
Sure, but I don't think the cases that are actually problematic and that we need to solve in Ubuntu have to do with like the data on the disk going bad. Because RAID is supposed to deal with that. It's supposed to, things we tend to have problems with. Things we tend to have problems with are a device disconnecting transiently, and how we handle the device falling out of the array and being re-added, and desyncing the RAID state rather than simply desyncing the data on the disk. The degraded boot story needs to be revisited, and we need to make sure we know what's going on there. I guess as far as other things for this session, who in here is actually running software RAID on there? And is it working for you?
When it works, it's great.
Yeah.
It's when as always, it's when something goes wrong that you start scratching your head. So to give an example, it's in the blueprint from last time round. One of the messages that you get is from the kernel is you get error messages for ATA, number.number, and mapping that back to, okay, so actually tell me which device is failing, because number.number doesn't mean anything to me unless I can.
Well, that feeds into stuff you're already thinking about quite well.
That information is probably available in SysFX.
Absolutely.
It is.
The user should never look
exactly.
at it.
That's what I'm saying. It's just, which is why it makes my head hurt a little bit. And you need to dig around and find what's going on there.
But probably because it's in SysFS, we probably know the answer to.
Yeah. We just need to represent.
You're suggesting changing the kernel's message. I don't think necessarily. I think this is a case where the physical device is failing, and the user needs to understand what to do about it, which is not, I think, a kernel problem. I think the information the kernel is giving us is appropriate at that level, but that we need to wrap it and communicate that to the user in a manner that's comprehensive.
Degraded hardware notifications, but yeah.
Because I think the DM stuff gives you quite a lot of information about user space, which things are consuming which other devices.
Yes.
To allow you to map.
Yep.
So what you're suggesting is we ought to have an interface so you can say the kernel said this, what does it mean? Or?
Well, actually, in fact, what he's talked about, and it's not on this, was it on the whiteboard for this blueprint, or was it a different?
No, it's a different blueprint for hardware notifications.
Right, so he's actually proposing that when there's failing hardware of any kind, that we have desktop level notifications if it's a desktop system.
Okay,
We have indicators that tell you, and then that would
we would use that system to allow it to translate it into human readable.
Yep.
The disk in your top slot.
But please, for the love of God, have a CLI interface for that as well, because
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah.
The idea was to push it out
indicators plus update on D plus
yes.
server plus VO messages
Yeah,
plus as
yeah.
much as possible. We are trying to cover each product.
Excellent.
Because if something fails in the cloud, you still want to know.
So, for
CLI
clarification,
server.
So my example is server 20.
Message of the day as well.
Yeah, 20 disks in it, and finding out which one's gone bad is literally in some cases it's a matter of DDing from the disk to dev null and seeing which live lights are to work out which disk I need to pull the swap over.
All right. Well,
That's a cool
physical
one.
have flash indicators with hot swappable drives.
The drives are hot swappable, but there's no indicator to say which. Not on software RAID.
You know which physical spindle it is.
I know which.
Because I've told you which physical spindle is from the kernel, unfortunately, which is what you're upset about.
Yeah, right. And if I go through sysfs, I can then work out. But actually, it's easier for me to DD from. No, sorry. You've told me exactly which spindle, but I don't necessarily know which drive that is because they initialize differently each time the machine boots. So dev SDA one boot is not isn't necessarily.
Really?
How does that happen? That shouldn't be possible because
you have cables.
even with parallel disk initialization, we hold off the registration of the drives to do them in a consistent order to prevent
Unless
that
you
happening.
change something between the boots.
Shouldn't be doing that.
If you change something between the boots, like take the two hard drives and flip them around, yes, you'll get them the wrong way around.
Yeah.
But
yeah, if
apart
you've never
from
moved
that,
the drives, I would expect them to be numerically the same every time.
After the initial installation, after the initial, is that not happening?
No,
You can't count.
no, definitely not.
I mean, you agreeing on
Yeah. Yeah. So I either have the choice of recording all the serial numbers and taking the output from the brain's just gone dead. No, I think Smart. Taking the output from Smart, which tells me which drive is dead, and then so it says dev SD whatever is dead. So DD from that drive to dev null. Okay, that light's lit up. That's the one I need to pull. Yeah, I mean if they were consistent.
And Smart notifications
Yeah.
out of degraded hardware spec
Exactly,
as well.
exactly.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
Brian, how have your rates been lately?
Good. I put that one bug that I ran into in the blueprint about not putting degraded and the signature.
Okay. There have been some other bugs that have been reported to me word of mouth, and neither of the people who reported them have showed up for this session, so
Okay.
we will nag them by email later. But Case was telling me about a bug he experienced on upgrade where the first boot on the new kernel, what exactly did it do? Oh yes, it put his entire, it created a RAID out of his two drives instead of the partitions, which would indicate a bug in the ordering of device detection, which it's never supposed to do that. We're always supposed to code the partitions first instead of the drives. Because the fact that the metadata is at the end of the device, you can't tell if it's a partition or a disk. So you have to do the partitions first and then the disks. So
was that really
you could not
recently?
reproduce it.
Stefan was complaining that something had changed in LDM, I think, where they moved where the partition table headers were. So there was old ones and new ones now, and that was really confusing.
He didn't mention
Destroyed his
LDM in
entire
this
range.
context. He didn't mention LDM in this context, and he was not able to reproduce it on a second boot. He managed to salvage his data and then was not able to reproduce the bug on the second boot.
You should talk to Stefan Bader because he had some horrendous behavior with headers. There being old and new headers, and when he recovered his RAID by hand, it used the new ones instead of the old ones and did something terrible to the drive.
The other bit is George Castro. I completely forgot even what his issue is. So, Dimitri, you just want to take an action item to follow up with George.
Yeah.
Did we?
I am making notes except that on the summit on the Etherpad.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to notice what he says there about something about it mailing stuff out and us not seeing.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's why the degraded hardware notifications pack was put in, because out of the box, there are no notifications on the server, nor the desktop, which you actually can receive, especially for things like software break. You have to set it up manually.
Yeah, Philip, I agree. That's a bug in block
So
ID.
now that we will handle that, hopefully. Well, we will.
But it's a strange bug that we've never seen before in block ID.
True.
So I'm not sure we actually have anything else to cover in here. Do we know of anything else we should actually be discussing?
I mean, so the original blueprint had the Etherpad from 2 UDSs ago in it, so it might be worth just skimming through that to make sure there's nothing else. Definitely connected. It's on the right hook.
Have you?
You're
Is
using
it-
HDMI?
No, VGA.
Have you tried an X round R minus minus auto? You should need to. I didn't this week for some reason.
For some reason, it rather than the display coming as
It did disappear.
on, it's come as off. Okay.
Yeah, I had that as well. That's got to be new behaviour in Precise.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So here's the whiteboard from last time. So yeah, we talked.
I think some pretty good actions there.
Yeah.
The first two there would be very handy, not just for having that information, but for thinking about how to do tests for them in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart integration maybe. So yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of good stuff that we can just walk straight across. And so it's the one that we talked about earlier.
So you have a big box of disks
Yeah.
that doesn't have some interface to actually identify which disk goes bad other than when it's...
And there's no way to. They don't
Like-
have identity lights. That's very unusual.
I mean, like, there's no
No,
vendor-specific tools that would tell you that. I mean, it just seems odd.
I mean, it's a server built from commodity hardware and 20.
What's holding the drives?
Say again?
What are the drives held in?
Five wide bays. So it's a 12 bay case. 5 drives each. Three sort of things. Well, you can, but it's a manual package process.
You do not expect the drive names to be consistent. I'm really confused that they're not consistent.
They're really not.
To be success.
To be consistent in name.
To be consistent.
So because the kernel goes to a lot of effort to make them It's to order them so in the same order every time.
Right.
So it seems unexpected that
Right.
the drive names change.
Doesn't depend on.
Yeah, so it's not SCSI, it's SATA.
Yeah, it's not SCSI, SATA.
Same thing.
Yeah, they are
Well, yeah.
essentially the same.
Yeah.
So I think the management tools we're providing ought to flag that and like that for you as part of
Yeah,
it.
it's certainly if we
Shouldn't be
know
something.
how to tell you which drive is which, we should figure that out. Tell you that there's a way of knowing.
Yeah.
Because there may be a way of knowing that we just don't tell you about.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure all those machines I've seen, even with just SATA drives that have SAS on them, you can flash the drives. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure you can flash the drives.
Yeah, would make sense.
So we should put something down to investigate that.
Yeah.
So if you notice from the previous iteration of this blueprint, the work items, there's a lot of stuff in there about Case is supposed to take in some action items that you can follow up on. So I think this time the action item is that I would like you to pester Case to do the stuff he agreed to do 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, because he does have the knowledge about that. He has the context that really needs to be brain dumped to you. So.
And is do we think he's still available to do that? Given, I guess it is in
He had
the
another,
documentation.
yeah, and he had another upgrade about upgrading to precise.
Right.
This was a lovely thing where the rate was composed of the wrong pieces.
What kind of systems are you guys thinking of basically doing this like
Anything that
Anything we can.
anything like servers also? Proper servers?
And well, it's anything that you've done RAID in that we have a standard kernel interface to flash the light on.
Was this for something that has failed?
Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes you
if-
have the RAID controller on the server, and what you see as a disk is not one disk, it's a bunch
Right,
of
this
disks.
is
And it gets
considered
more
software,
complicated.
Right.
Yes.
This is we're talking about software RAID and yeah,
I
hardware RAID
mean,
would have to be done.
it's probably an almost slightly separate problem, because essentially, in this case, we're talking about if a drive has an identification system, we should expose that whether the drive's broken or not, and expose that to you in a way that makes it easy. Because often you want
But
to
is
take the
it
drive out.
really
because
a
it's good.
RAID software RAID problem?
No, that's what I'm trying to
It's a
suggest.
smart,
It's a
it's a
disk
hardware problem.
identification.
Any disk
Yes.
that fails, even if it's not part of RAID.
Well, actually, not if it's not failed. You may wish to take the drive out. and put
Yeah,
it in another
exactly. You
machine.
should be able to identify that
If we
in
have
any
a way of identifying drive, or
for
probably
any
as,
reason.
as it's more likely 3 completely different ways of identifying drives depending how they're connected. It'd be nice to hide that behind something if we can figure out how to do it. So you can say identify this disk and it'll go, yeah, sorry, don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Or yay, it's now green.
Yeah.
If it's not easy.
The reason
Or
I asked
with
is
what?
from the kernel, a RAID controller and the disks that it's exporting would look exactly the same.
Right,
Yeah.
So in
one
hardware
of
RAID, the
the
problem is
controllers.
completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's down to your RAID controller. You probably have to go and talk to it in BIOS
Then
and go,
you put it
hey,
next to the-
where are my drives?
If a hardware RAID has a failed drive, it's not going to signal the kernel in this manner about it. So the kernel would not be trying to light it any. Or
Well, hopefully you'd be
trying to
getting
light
smart
it
data for the
responsibly.
drive telling you that something's wrong with it.
Yeah. And
Something.
Smart understands hardware RAID controls in many cases as well, and it's able to navigate down the tree and report that shit back anyway. So
But that's if the whole volume fails. Then it comes up to the software level.
no. Even if a single drive has failed in a hardware RAID, and the rest of the array, so if it's RAID 5, you can have one drive fail. Smart is able to navigate through the hardware RAID card for a certain number of hardware RAID cards. I'm sure it can't do it for all of them, and individually hold and understand the drives and report back when a drive fails. It doesn't look at the whole thing and see it's just one drive.
Right. What I'm saying is, if that volume fails, SVA fails, and there are 2 disks in there, let's say both of them didn't return what you're trying to read, then the software RAID would actually see that failure. And if you try to light at that time, if you wanted to turn on the light, then you wouldn't know which disk.
Sorry, so you're talking about software RAIDing on top of a hardware RAID?
Right.
Right, okay,
Right.
now I'm with you.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay.
Who does that?
And there is a real life use case for that. Okay.
Then, I mean, any solution you're...
Doesn't that mean you get the intersection of all the dark problems?
I mean, to be fair, I do know of organisations that do run like that. They run hardware RAID because they want
You want
mirror
something a bit more
RAID.
flexible than what
The 1.0
Yeah, I mean,
something.
yeah, they've got a pair of hardware RAID controllers. They run disks mirrored,
They
and
want
then
to
they
do
run it
1.0
striped
on
across
top
the
of
software, or they do the other way around. Yeah.
1.0.
Because they can't change what they've put in first and they want the second one on top.
Also, there's the
and that's what they
advantage
do.
that
Yeah.
you can do software RAID at the partition level, whereas on the software, the hardware controller side it's by disk. Which, yeah, I can see some use for that.
Many people don't realise more hardware is more useful.
Yes. Very true.
So we captured everything we wanted to capture.
Yeah.
And I just want to have a question about the notification. So we were going to notify on what serial number of the drive fails besides the blinking lights.
Yeah, we're gonna notify any and every way we can, so that you'll be able to identify it, whether it's serial number, DevSD, whatever.
The most sensible way.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Something that you can easily track, basically.
Yeah. And if it's supported, so we'll try the best one if it's supported, then the next one, then the next one.
Right at the back of the graph
Because
that you can't get
really,
to.
because
smart serial numbers
will
across the front
support nothing.
where the light is, so you know it's visible.
Because Smart can read it, it's fine.
Yeah.
So all we have to do is get Smart to pass the information.
And you've now got 6 drives which all look the same.
Yeah.
And you're back to reading off it again. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think so.
Loads for me to do stuff.
Yeah.
Before and after.
Question with degrading.
Hardware. Like, yeah.
So right now, you removed and you degraded it, pulled out, whatever. The default is to not.
Oh, we've actually had a couple of things just appear on IRT.
The default is to not.
Yeah, that's been there for a bit.
What, the last couple as well.
Sorry?
Yeah, they were there.
Okay, cool.
Because that's